We are live. Boom! Out of the night that covers me, black as the pit from pole to pole. I thank whatever gods may be for my unconquerable soul, baby. This brother right here, woo! Me and this brother go way back, bro. You know, I gotta say, man, you know, and it's been a recurring pattern for the brothers on this show. You know, dudes that haven't seen or spoken to in literally years, bro. It's been about, I think the last time that we sat down and built was like 2014. So it's really been about a good 5 going on 6 years since I've even seen you, bro. This is the first time that I'm actually seeing you. And, you know, the recurring theme is, you know, it's just like when we last linked up, man, because the connections that you form as a result of all of this are that real. And, you know, I'm proud to call you my brother just based on what I remember from our last couple of conversations when I was in Indiana, sitting down, we was building, we was talking. And, you know, I just, I'm grateful, bro. I'm grateful. I'm grateful for you. You know what I'm saying? I'm grateful for the organization. Shout out to your chapter. Shout out to your chapter. We'll get into your chapter in a second because me and your chapter go way back. And, you know, I'm just proud and very proud and grateful to have you on the show. I'm looking forward to what we get into tonight because, you know, as I've grown in the past couple of years, I'm sure your consciousness and your mind has grown exponentially as well. So I'm looking forward to kind of getting into that and really just catching up, bro, because, you know, this is catching up for me as well as it is building and giving the organization, the world a chance to know who you are, you know. So without further ado, please, my brother, introduce yourself. What is your name? What chapter are you from? And what semester did you cross?
Oh, yes. My name is Howard J. Robinson. My chapter is the Elegua chapter, chartered in Greencastle, Indiana. Played spring 2014, so I'm an old young person. So I've been in the game a young time, so I got to enjoy being in a fraternity through all 4 years of college. Pledged my second semester after, again, showing that I could do it academically. And I think that was one of the best collegiate experiences, having a chance to build and grow as a young man with a group of individuals who were going through the same experiences and similar things in a close proximity. So, I mean, definitely, again, humble beginnings. If you're talking about where I'm from, I grew up in Chicago, grew up in South Side Chicago, but was born in Minnesota. So I've always been a Midwest kid. I used to live in California.
Bro, just to cut you off real quick, because you talk about Chicago, I just seen a statistic today that said that the murder rate in Chicago is double New York and LA combined.
I believe it. I mean, listen, when people...
Bro, what's going on in Chicago, man?
I mean, what's going on in Chicago is that the lack of resources that are available for young people or just people in general who are part of a certain socioeconomic status they aren't great. So people have to do whatever they can to survive. And the quest for that survival, a lot of bad things are being done, or a lot of people just trying to survive, essentially. Now, the factor, that doesn't make it what they're doing right morally or ethical in some cases, but at the end of the day, it all bears down to people are just trying to survive. And in such a small space, such a big space. So Chicago is one of the most segregated cities in the world. I've gone to New York, I've gone to Florida, I've gone to California, and most of the cities have like a blend. You don't feel like you're going from a new section. Even in California, I can go to California or a bigger city like LA, and it still feels like California. But in certain sections of Chicago, like if you're from the north side, you're going to have a completely different experience than someone from the south side compared to someone who's from the west side. So depending on what side of the city you have is what side of the city you experience. So the people who live on the west or south side where I come from, there aren't much opportunities. Chicago public schools were always in the news. Teachers are on strike every 3-4 years. The reason behind that is because the school system is so bad in terms of their academic ethics. So my high school, before it became a charter school, was on academic probation for 15 years. Like, we had books that were coming off the seams until Verizon Wireless came in and gave us $1 million grant to become a charter school.
Okay.
Every school wasn't that lucky.
Did that happen while you were in school?
My senior year, so I got to see it.
So you saw the changes happen.
I got to see it firsthand. So I got to see, literally, it was amazing. I got to, the first year, my junior year, I got to the school. It's called Corliss High School. It's on the south side.
Shout out to that high school. Anybody from that school that just might so be happening to watch this episode, you know, you're looking at somebody that comes from your environment, that comes from your same circumstances, that was able to do something different. It's possible. You know, that message is for young people, man, for real.
Sure, yes, sir. I mean, we was right. When I say right in the hood, like I'm talking about gas station less than a block away from the school. The first year I got there, we didn't have any uniform, so it was like less structure or whatever. And I can remember like 7 or 8 fights seeing 7 or 8 fights the first year I got there. And one time, security was on a completely different wing of the floor. And there were 50 students up there watching a one-on-one fight for about 15 minutes. Like we were at the pay-per-view. It was like watching his reset, and it was madness. And then going from, I guess to kind of backtrack a little bit, my first high school was a suburban school. So I actually got to see.
Wait, matter of fact, let's go back even further than that, bro, because I definitely want to deal with like the nitty gritty of, you know, growing up as a young black man in Chicago, south side of Chicago. You know, talk about your home life first. Like, you know, like let's go back to when you were a little boy. You know what I mean? Because the type of conversations that I recall that we've had in the past, you know, those conversations, you know, in my opinion, in my view, because that kind of consciousness, that, you know, level of intellect or the ability to articulate, I feel like those seeds 9 times out of 10 have to get planted early. Did you have anybody in your early life that you could recall that was putting you on to life game? Like, what kind of little boy were you, bro?
Well, that's definitely a good question. I get some hot chocolate. I don't drink too much alcohol anymore.
No doubt.
But in terms of, I mean, I was always a imaginative kid. So whether you believe in astrology or not, I was born on February 17th. So there's a belief that Aquarius kids are very creative and like very out of the norm themes. So I wasn't a very active kid. So I wasn't the one always to go outside. I always played a lot of video games, card games.
As did I.
I guess like imaginative is probably the word I'll use to describe. Always daydreaming. My childhood, it was interesting.
Yo, and that's crazy, right? Yo, and I'm gonna be doing this a lot because I know that, you know, we on the same frequency, right? They demonize daydreaming in schools, right? Stop daydreaming. But that's the most powerful tool that you have, your imagination, especially as a young man. You know, I heard something the other day. The brother said, you know, man's womb is in his mind. He births ideas. But they telling you all throughout grade school, all throughout middle, elementary school, high school, stop daydreaming. Get out of your imagination. Get out of your imagination. That's where you create reality in your mind first. So when you say I was always daydreaming, you know, that's just the first thing that I thought of, bro. Because, you know, and it's like a constant attack on the imagination that I see, man. Terrible, bro. Terrible.
I mean, this is like to even skip ahead, like a different part in high school. I can talk about like how I felt really isolated and I read a lot of books. And like in my sophomore year of high school, I literally read over 200 books. Like I'd go to the library and devour like Percy Jackson, Olympus, all science fiction.
Yeah.
Because I was new to a new area and I just played a lot of games. So before I had a game system, I just go home and get lost in books and finish whole books in days. And when it came to imagination, it'd be like the words just flow and like it's kind of like a movie in your mind. It's like reading books, like you can kind of like get lost in the words, or at least for me, like I was able to get so engrossed in the stories, or like I used to read pages like it's a sporting event, or get that level of excitement to know what happens to the character. So really getting engrossed in literature really helped me expand my imagination. This is I guess what I attributed to in terms of like communication. Overall, I guess learning how to communicate differently. And also have ideas. Like my thought process is way different from a lot of people. I get that all the time that I think out of the box, or I'm very creative. But at the end of the day, I just know I use my imagination as a tool and not as a hindrance. Most people, when they dream, they think they're being unrealistic. But I believe it's something that you should be able to. Your imagination can help fuel you to achieve goals instead of I guess, detracting from what most people think their imagination detracts from their real
Right,
goals.
right.
Do the 9 to 5 or take care of responsibilities, but imagination is what leads you to fulfilling your dreams. And so again, I've been on my own little path trying to again work out how to spread the message of what got me through a lot of from going from house to house when I was in from the ages of like 2 to like 14. I think I moved about 3 states, about 5 different houses.
Now, when you say, so when you was doing all this moving, were you moving with consistent family?
So it was.
Were you with different people throughout these years? Like, paint that picture.
Well, so this is painting back. So it was. So I have one older sister. Her name is Makisha, and I have a mother and a father. So I was never a really big group. My mother and father had a lot of siblings. So I think my mom has about 3 siblings, and my dad has like 10. So I used to live, and I started off in Minnesota with my mother's siblings. Then I remember there being some kind of altercation with my mother happening when I'm like 5 or 6. And then us having to go to California for 2-3 years in Long Beach, and then moving from Long Beach up until Chicago. And that's where I kind of stayed. So I guess those kind of 3 moves. And within Chicago, I moved to about 3 different places, 3-4 different places. So I've always traditionally stayed with my mother and my father. He's been blind since the age since I was 8 months old. He was shot and blinded again. Being in the streets again, Southside Chicago.
You said shot? He was shot?
He was shot and blinded. It wasn't in the act of like an attack. It was just him and his friends sitting around. I guess him and his friends. When I say it wasn't college, he was technically in college. He was supposed to be going for computer science, but got drew back into the streets with his friends. Trying to make easy money to support the family. So doing what most young black men trying to do is find a drug route. And again, that's him and his friend playing around with a gun, and he got shot, and it went up his back and traveled and went out his left eye.
Man.
Yeah,
Man.
just lucky to be alive. Again, he's able to function, cognizant again. So again, I still had a father figure in my life, but again, it wasn't the same experience.
No doubt.
As the average, I guess the average kid would have, and it was. I mean, but I also had a very good, luckily, a very good grandfather. So he kind of stepped in on my mother's side as a significant male role model in terms when I was younger. So that really was significant in terms of life.
Yo, you know what? As you say that, right, it makes sense because the way you present yourself and even the way you talk and put words together, it's of a different generation. Mm-hmm. It's of what I imagine to be the generation before my parents kind of thing. You understand? That kind of older school, more rooted kind of, countenance about you. You know what I mean? So, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, kids in high school used to call me grandpa. Like they say,
yeah.
Completely right. I've always felt like I mean, in terms of like existential, like spiritual thing, I can tell I've either had a bunch of experiences that I've drew a lot from, or I've been here before. So it's either
about your grandfather. We're talking about, you would call grandpa in high school and things of that nature, and that there was a lot of spiritual and kind of existential things that kind of put you in place to become the man who you are today. So let's get into it. Let's talk about some of those things, bro. What were some of the things that you went through, saw, experienced? Let's deal with the things that molded you, bro.
Well, I mean, I guess the earliest thing I can feel like that guided me in terms of purpose was having significant teachers who actually like showed attention, or like showed showed that they were aware that I was there was some power in my imagination, or that I had something in me that they wanted to encourage. And I can also, in that looking now, it translated into me always. I've been on and off teaching since like my freshman year of high school. Actually about senior year of high school, I was volunteering in schools. In my freshman year of college, that's why I started working hands-on with kids. So that was about 2013. So about over 6 years, at least each year, I've worked with students in some capacity. Just because, again, I've had these role models help get me to different stages in my life. The first 2 stages, I had a teacher named Mr. Sherlock.
Shout out to Mr. Sherlock.
Yeah, shout out.
Yo, you know what's crazy? Before you continue, bro, like it's also been a recurring theme through all these interviews and episodes that I've done of these influential educators. It matters, bro. It matters. Like, yo, if there's other brothers out there, that if you're an educator, get at me, man. Because I haven't met another brother that's also an educator. I know y'all out there. I've heard of one or two, but get at me. Let's, DM me. Let's build, man. Let's build on what it's like to be an educator in the school system and how we can work within the system to, elevate consciousness, man. But go ahead, bro. Continue, man.
I don't know on that, but on just like Mr. Sherlock, I'll never forget he had this app. This was like really early on. I don't remember what year. Can't think that far back. But I was in about third grade, and there was this online app called KidBiz, which was like an online reading app that was supposed to gauge how well you were able to read, and then raise you up higher and higher. So I started doing these tests, and other kids didn't really care about it. But me going back into reference, I used to read a lot. My reading level was always far superior than all my classmates.
Right.
So, just because I read for fun, like I was reading big chapter books when I was where other kids were just reading thinner ones, just because most of the science fiction ones had a lot of words in them. So I said, I like this content, I'm gonna read, and I learned to speed read or just comprehend faster and things like that.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
First couple of tests, I came out again. I'm in third grade, so the first test I came out the fifth grade. He was like, "How are you? You had a fifth grade reading level?" He was, well, let me give you a test to see like how high you can get. By the time by the end of that school year, I was doing work at a 12th grade reading level, and compared to all my other classmates, like it was like in terms of like content, we give like say you have a 2-paragraph prompt and you get 3-4 questions, and that's the average for my classmates. Well, my work, I had about 6 or 7 paragraphs with about 1 to 10 questions with variable answers. I'm just sitting there like, well, I'm again comprehending and understanding. And he was like, you need to just keep working and just keep trying to, and he saw that I like the technology and computers. So he taught us a little web design. So in third grade, I'm doing web design and working with computers and using different formats and things of that nature. That was like a spark plug.
All because he's seen what you could do and put you on to that other level of, like I said, that he gave you that access.
Mm-hmm. And not even that, just like he directed, like I guess he saw potential, and teachers help. What I see teachers doing, they help direct. If they see a light in a child, they help direct that, or they can help try to give them confidence to pursue that avenue, and just give them confidence in their abilities. I think that's the biggest things educators can do in the simplest form, is give students confidence in their abilities.
I agree.
And he gave me confidence to say, "Oh, well, you are really good readers." And he gave, because again, it could have been I've been ostracized by my classmates, and here I go doing harder work. I could have became a target, because in most school systems you get bullied for being smart, but he made it so in the classroom that it was actually a highlight to be doing
intelligence well. Intelligence was celebrated. It was highlighted.
Exactly. Yeah, that was important, and that actually that made me feel good. I've always had that that motive of education. I was like, I wasn't the most athletic, but I say if I can be smart, then I can still be good, and that was good enough for me in terms of like, I guess, I mean, in some ways it could be a coping mechanism, but for me, it was a way as a motivator, because again, I wasn't the most athletic kid. I didn't have as much as other kids, but being able to express myself intellectually at a high level gave me a sense of confidence that I felt like I couldn't got otherwise. So I teach up that too, just by again taking the extra effort to put time into a kid, not just seeing me as another little black kid. He was a white man. That's the craziest. The craziest thing. But he was again a white man, a bald white man, which is why again.
You know what I've learned? Because we've had conversations regarding these white folks. I've learned that there's just certain things that transcend race, bro. There's certain things that transcend race. What he gave you was meant for you in that moment, and it just so happened to come from a white man. You know what I mean? So that confidence, that light that he was able to see in you, that is a moment where these things transcend race. And shout out to my white teachers that put me on. I had a white man as a theater teacher in high school, and he put me on to what I would go on to continue and pursue in college, my performance. You know what I'm saying? It was a black woman that first seen it in me. But then it was that white man in high school, shout out to Mr. Neiman, who gave me the platform. So certain things transcend race. That's what's up. That's a good thing, bro.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's something that people I guess in college that was hard for me to realize again.
Me
So
too.
I mean, there's definitely a certain level of resentment once you see what people have. I guess that's when the term privilege and everything comes into play. But on a simpler term, before when my freshman year, I wasn't as keen into the woke era. It was just beginning. So when I saw students with MacBook Pros and I got a $300 Toshiba, and everyone
Yeah.
was looking here, it's really hard
Yeah.
to want to be open or try to gain. I mean, again, it's different when you're a kid. Again, when you're younger, you're innocent and you're open. The older I got, the more experiences I had in Chicago, dealing with racist cops, dealing with racist teachers. We got a whole plethora of stories, and I guess and from one in high school where a principal said I was in a suburban school, said if I didn't get my act right, she'd send me back to the hood. Heard that from a
Told
security.
you? Told you to your face?
It to my face, yeah, to my face. And when I
Yeah.
told her teacher, she made a face like she knew it was wrong. But again, I left the school, I guess a couple months after. But again, like just being one of the one of the few black people in spaces, I've said I've become used to that, and in turn, it's hard to find. Well, at first, it was hard to find my individuality and not become entrapped by a simulation, trying to fit in, trying to blend in and not seem different. Later on in life, I started to embrace my individuality and
Yeah, man.
because I mean, I guess going back to high school, my freshman year, I went to one of the worst high schools in Chicago. It was Finger High School. You might have heard of the incident. So there was an incident way back. What's my first? I graduated in 2013. So that's about 2009. I guess there was an incident called the Darien Albert incident in Chicago where a high school student was hit in the head with a 2x4 and the school fighting was killed. And a bunch of like 20 other high school kids were out there. Well, I just so happened to go to the same school as the kid. I just transferred out about a month before that. And I used to walk the same way home. So again, I would have most likely been involved in that incident that one kid got potentially killed in. And not just that, that whole area was gang ridden. The school had armed security. It was one of the worst schools. I mean, again, later on, going back into reference about charter schools, they got a grant from some school and they're doing a lot better now. So again, shout out to Figure High School.
Shout out.
In terms of back when I was there, at least my first year, and I actually only stayed there for about a month, which was really funny. Because I actually got accepted into Walter Payton, which is one of the best schools in Chicago.
Was that a high school?
Yes, it's high school. It was like one of the biggest high schools. They had millions of dollars, like 17 different languages, but it was on a different side of Chicago. But this is why I talk about it being segregated. Like it wouldn't have been safe for me to travel every day from the south side to the north side, just because the commute would have been so long. And
right.
So I wasn't able to go to that school. So I ended up from getting accepted to one of the top high schools in my states because my test scores were about in the 99 percentile. So I guess the opposite. I was in the top 1%. I was always great at tests. Again, being I guess the books and I guess being able to comprehend for fun really helped me in
high intellect, high level of intelligence.
And I guess I mean some people don't like that term, but again, I've always been a highly intelligent kid just from the get go. Just because my imagination, I've always been curious, or I've never like been a math whiz, so it's not that kind of intelligence where I can sit and solve 50 math problems.
No doubt.
But if you ask me about a certain topic, or you want to talk about a theory or something of that nature, then I can talk about it, especially if I'm well versed in it. So I know enough to hold my own in terms of everyday conversations because I draw from a lot of experiences. My major in college, just to skip ahead, was anthropology, so the study of human culture. So I spend a lot of time looking at groups of people, and then looking back, it caused me to reflect on myself to see how I've grown and progressed. And I guess from going to all those high schools, I've learned to deal with a lot of adversity. So I've learned to deal with different groups of people. I've learned how to maintain myself as a person, even when I'm going into new spaces. But again, there was a lot of trauma. So in that, but
So let's go there. I mean, obviously go where you feel comfortable, but the point of all of this is kind of to give current brothers, prospective brothers, and just the viewership in general, an idea of what makes good men good men. And I consider you to be a very good man, very good young man. And, based on our previous conversations and even just now, the way you're articulating yourself is just, I'm honored that you're on the show, bro. You know what I mean? So I appreciate you. So, talk about some of the things you had mentioned adversities. You know what I'm saying? So talk a little bit about, what were some of these adversities that you faced, the ones that really stick out to you, that molded you, and then talk a little bit about how you were able to fight through them or, overcome and things of that nature. Because we have brothers now that are going through things, and they may not necessarily know how to push through. They may fall victim to the depression. They may fall victim to the self-loathing and the self-hatred and So go into that, bro.
Yeah, well, definitely. Again, it's very easy to fall into those things. But in terms of adversity, again, I went to about there was Finger High School, there was Finger High School, there was Tinley Park, that was suburban one, and then I went to the Corliss one again. So I went from a hood school to a suburban school, back to a hood school. So I went to 3 different high schools in the span of 4 years. So my first 2 years, again, there were I spent those mainly in a suburban school where, again, one of the few black, actually, it's a funny story because I had a cousin who went to that school before me. He was one of the most popular kids in school, had one of my biggest house parties. So when people found out I was his cousin, they're like, oh, you about to be lit, like one of the most popular kids is going to be popping. And when I got there, I was like, I'm not really into those things. Like, people were kind of confused because, again, my identity, again, I kind of say I'm more of an introverted type kid.
Yeah.
I had a friend, so I had like a core group of friends, and as a kid, like 3 to 5 that I do things with and to that nature, but I never was one to be like the life of the party or out there energetically at that phase in my life. So I was more low key, and my cousin was more like out there. So most people, once I wasn't about certain things, they just kind of like brushed me off to the side. And I guess I kind of hung with like the emo / like weird kids for a certain point. But I ended up becoming best friends with the star of the basketball team, which I guess that's something like from a movie. Like literally one of the coolest dudes in the school. We was like homies. Like we was like
right.
Shout out Orlando. Shout out man, I forgot his last name. But he was
shout out Orlando. Somebody get Orlando. Somebody tell Orlando to DM Howard, man. Somebody put him in contact with his man.
Yes, sir. I remember. I think he's working to become a sports agent. He was like a great hooper, like long braids, Lloyd, like all the ladies, man. Like, but he was like always cool. And
no doubt.
I've always been able to resonate with different groups of people, no matter where they've come from or where I come from. And I feel like that's something that definitely came from that, because we were like, again, he was always going out to parties, but when it came to hanging out in terms like that, it was cool. And I was in a suburban area, so I'm skipping around because at this point I live with my aunt. I moved from living with my mom when I was about my freshman year. Me and my sister left her house and went to go live with my aunt in the suburbs for about 2 years.
What was that like for you, bro? Was that a difficult separation that you had to make from your mother?
Yeah, it was different. Like, it wasn't. We didn't end on really good terms. I remember there being like just certain points about certain like memories about like a really big argument where we didn't want. Me and my sister didn't feel like where we were wanted. Well, again, my mother was a single mother trying to take care of 2 children. So again,
where's your pops at this point?
He was he was in the city, but he wasn't. Him and my mother were never together. So he was on the other side of the city doing his own separate thing. So again, work from my grandparents somewhat in the city, but certain things again within my mother in terms of like maturity. And now I'm reflecting back, I can see that again. She wasn't as experienced as we thought she was. Again, her first 2 kids, young black woman trying to survive, and
yes, sir,
being on public housing. So I don't hold any animosity towards my mother, but in retrospect, I can see.
Shout out to your mother, bro.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Shout out to mom. Yeah, she got me through the incident. Yesterday, she calmed me down because I was about to slap somebody. Not literally. I was on the bridge and I had to call mom. Like, I was like, Mom, talk me down. So yeah. But again, we definitely took some time to mend our relationship. I mean, again, that's another side note. I think people mend their relationship with their parents and see them on a individual basis. So my relationship with my mother is like we're friends, but like not in the sense that I laugh and I can say certain things, but that we have a mutual understanding. Like I can say, okay, Mom, I guess like mutual respect for her
She doesn't
authority.
judge you. She doesn't judge you, and you guys don't judge each other, and it's just like an understanding between you as individuals.
Yeah, that's the thing. I feel like most people get caught up in that I'm mother and son. I'm like, that's a role, and I should respect that and honor that bond. But at
Right.
the end, I'm a man, and an adult. I just not even that. I'm an adult, and we have as an adult, we have certain things that I need to respect of how you live your life, and certain things I actually want to live my life.
So
But
then,
most,
so then let me ask you this, bro, because this is interesting. So what do you say to maybe a bro who I don't know, he just pledged his freshman year. He's a neo, and he's feeling himself now, or maybe even you have a brother that already graduated. He's an alumni and he's in his mid-20s and everything like that, and he still maintains the kind of relationship with his mother or his father or both his parents where it's not like that, where they're not respecting his individuality as a man. What do you say to that brother or person? I'm just curious because I've heard this before.
I mean, definitely. I mean, the biggest thing is like you need to well, it's all where you at mentally in your headspace. It's like how much do you want? How much are you willing to tolerate? Are you ready for as a young adult? I'm assuming you're within my age group to go on your own into the world and to be able to embark on that journey without the complete guidance of your parents. I think most people they they like to complain about their parents, about their problems that their parents not respecting them. But if you ask them, well, are you ready to branch off and do your own thing? They're either a bunch of excuses or they haven't properly planned. So I'm not against people taking the time to plan and save up and work towards getting out of their parents' home. But if you're sitting there complacent and you're wondering why there's so much issues at home, well, you're in someone else's space as an adult, and those and energetically, you need your own space as a man,
Right.
or young woman.
Right.
You need the space to navigate, and there are going to be issues, regardless of your relationship with your parents. So,
Mm-hmm.
my biggest advice to them is like, you got to make hard choices. Like, I'll something and I used to joke around in college. It's like some hard choices you gotta. I guess we used to call it bite the bullet. The analogy. Me and future brother, not future brother. I almost played it again. Edit that
Your
out.
brother, yeah, you go back into that mode real quick, bro.
My line brother Jeffrey Frimpong, shout out to him. We used to always say you got to bite the bullet. Like sometimes in life, you gotta. Biting the bullet. It's like you think about it, you gotta forcibly do something that you might
That
not
you
want to do.
know is difficult, that you know will be hard, that you know you will face backlash, but it's for the greater good. It's the long term, I don't know, benefit. Yeah, long term benefit or the long term effect of it.
Yep,
I got.
and you got to be willing. Again, it takes a certain level of courage because again, people again are comfortable. Comfortability is poison. Like
You know what I heard the other day? The comfort zone is where dreams go to die.
again, I just call it poison. Like again, the dream
Sheesh.
killer, poison, and toxic. And like again, it's so hard in terms of like I guess the outside world, the bigger world can seem scary when you see people struggling with bills or see people talking about stress. But unless you get out there completely for yourself, you're not going to be able to find your rhythm. So it's like kind of like riding a bike. Like if
Yeah.
you have your parents holding on to the wheels, like you wonder like why they won't let me go. Well, you haven't spent enough time practicing. Like you haven't gone out there and gotten a job, or you haven't gotten your first apartment,
You
or
haven't
paid.
fallen down.
You haven't paid your first rent.
Yeah.
Like you haven't faced pressure until you can't be late on the bill. Like there's a difference between not paying your phone bill on time and your parents yell at you to you 5 days late and your landlord about to evict you. Like so,
Right.
it ain't
Right.
about the battles yet. I mean, most people you don't have not to say you have to necessarily go through that kind of economic stress, but if you don't have to go to those scenarios where you're signing a lease or you're even apartment hunting for people who might be better off, if you're not doing adult things where you're having to decide where you want to live or plan a budget for food, you're not going to be equipped enough to sustain yourself as an adult
Right.
individually. So again, just gotta work, find ways to work out of that. And
So how did you and your mother amend your relationship? Were things difficult for a while, and then you finally came to the table as as your own man, or how did that work out for you? I'm curious.
I think as a kid, so me and my sister always had like a lot of individuality. I guess one thing I always appreciate from my parents, they let me be me. So I never felt like in terms of it was never. I always had to go to church, or they were pushing me to be a football star, or pushing me to be an athlete. They were just letting me be me because I was always doing good at school and I was a quote unquote good kid. My sister
Got
was
you.
kind of the one who was always like getting in fights a little bit. Always a good student, but like always a little more rambunctious than me.
Got you. Okay.
So in terms of me and what was the question on? I got sidetracked.
No, just how, how were you able to amend that relationship between you and
Oh, yeah.
moms after
So
a while?
I think so. I guess at the point I can remember is probably in college, where I guess again being out of my mother's house. Again, goes back to what I just saying, like being out of my mother's house and being able to live on my own and having to do certain things and having to choose when to communicate with my mother. I mean, so after I graduated, we got back in contact. So when I was with my aunt, it wasn't like we weren't talking at all. Towards my end of my senior year, I moved back in with her. So I stayed back with her for about a year before I went off to college. So that it mended, but it wasn't perfect just because I was living back with her again.
Yeah.
To the point where I was able to communicate where I feel like we are now. Definitely came in college where I mean, again, it was my childhood was it was interesting. I wasn't the most privileged kid, but me going to college and being in a position where I had some access to resources, I was always sending money back home. So it was a whammy of me having to deal with issues at home and then having to be the one to help mom out with money for light bills or for phone bills because she was in and out of jobs. So it was and then in the midst of that responsibility came communication. So I guess it was a good and a bad. I was dealing with a lot of additional stress because of home. But again, there were certain points in college where I had to cut that off and I learned to focus solely on myself and
right.
get my things together. That's what came out of that. I was able to like get tunnel vision to work towards my goal and learn to separate things and stay focused for the most part.
Was she upset with that dynamic at first, but then eventually realized, okay, my son is growing into a man? Or was it something else?
There was definitely some resistance initially. Again, we definitely got a few arguments, but for me, in terms of establishing with my parents, you got to remain consistent. So you got to consistently assert your boundaries as a young adult. So I see this is why I say you need your own space and you need to be doing your own thing.
Because having your own space and having that solitude, and this is something that I'm kind of just now getting around to understand within the past couple of years, that allows you to know yourself.
Yeah.
Self-awareness, knowing yourself, there's no other way to put it. Knowing yourself gives you the opportunity to craft the world around you because you know what you will stand for and what you won't stand for. Like you said, asserting those boundaries,
Yep, and for parents, it's hard because like they still seeing you as a child. So honestly, you're gonna have to. This isn't no cakewalk. You're not gonna be able to slice through it like peanut butter. You're gonna have. It was hard. It was constant hammering. Mom, I'm not doing this or that. I'm a young adult. Like I got this going on in my life.
Yeah,
I need to be mom. I can't deal with that right now. And like getting to like you got to respectfully tell your parent. I guess respectfully assert your boundaries is what you should do with your parents. Like again, I'm not here cursing my mom out saying you. I don't do that. I'm always an ultra respect for my parents, and I can't remember a situation where I've disrespected them. But I told my mother how I feel very passionately, but always with respect and always with a level of understanding. Like, hey, you're my mother, and I'm respecting what you're saying. But this is how I feel, and this is how I like. And it's a lot easier when you can go in your own house and close the door.
Right.
When you got to keep a mom room you see in the kitchen. It ain't gonna. It don't look the same.
Or go downstairs and shit. I got you.
It's the same. So like that's what I'm saying. Like if you want that luxury of like, I feel like you get a better relationship with your parents if you branch off for a bit. Because one, they learn to, I guess, appreciate you. You would learn to appreciate them, but you also learn to appreciate yourself. Like I've learned like respect. Like, well, I can see why mom was like, well, they is food in the crib. Like, because when money is low. And you look in the refrigerator, and you find some food in there. Like, and whether you just being lazy or whether you just low on funds, you'll make it work, and you start to gain understanding of why your parents in certain things, and you start to lose some of that childhood resentment. I feel like a lot of people have a
resentment. Childhood resentment. That's good. That's good. Yeah. And you know what? It happens in what you're saying happens in relationships as well. We talking about romantic relationships. We talking about friendships. Failure to assert your boundaries. See, but you can't assert them before you know what they are in the first place. That's why I'm saying it comes back to, knowing yourself, and taking time to just deal with yourself. But everything you're saying applies to relationships too, bro. Like relationships, man. Relationships crumble. Marriages crumble because of resentment, bro.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, again, my relationship situation was wow. I mean, in college, like after I crossed, again, so I guess my freshman year of college, that's where my life really did like a really complete 360. So I went from being like again, you see me describe myself as a college reader, like more of an introverted kid. Then when I got to college, so I ended up winning a full tuition scholarship called the Posse Scholarship, which was a
Shout out to the
competition.
Posse program.
To the Posse Scholar Foundation in Florida, because they saved the brother. So at this point, well, again, going back to high school towards the end, I was
Yeah.
still doing it on the ACT, so I did good enough. I think I got about like a 19 in read math, but I got a 30 in reading. Like the highest you can get on the ACT is 36. I got a 30 in reading. Like teachers were baffled. Like if I did a little bit better in math, again, I was never that kind of, I guess, smart with math kind of. And most people, when they say intelligent and smart, they think you got to be a rocket scientist or you got to be able to do a bunch of calculations. No. Like I was doing high level reading like that. I mean, if you want to get into how standardized testers are used to combat community college, we can get into that. But
No
just
doubt. We will.
totally glance on that, I was able to combat that just because of my own enthusiasm for knowledge. And teachers recognized that and encouraged me to apply for certain things. So I did this application for like a few of the Ivy League schools and ended up getting interviewed for Harvard. So I was able to get interviewed for I made it to the second round of interviews for Harvard University. So I was juiced up my senior high school, and I told my friends I'm going to Harvard. I'm out in y'all.
You already bought the hoodie and the banner and shit. You got that shit hanging up.
Like I almost did, and the way the scholarship comes in is I had a principal. So we had a new principal. He was a really nice man. I forget his name, but I'm thinking of it later. The principal, he told me, said, Howard, I know you think you're going to Harvard, but I'm gonna need you to go to this interview for the first interview for the scholarship. I was like, man, I don't want to go. So he gave me
Posse.
for the Posse Foundation. He gave me and a few other students bus passes, whatever, because the school gave us bus passes so we can go, made us all go or whatever. And he was literally the reason I actually went toward the scholarship because I was so enthused about Harvard. And the interview was really odd, actually. Like I was
just about to ask. It's so funny you went there because I was just about to say, yo, shed some light on the Harvard interview process, bro. I'm sure it's not a secret process, so we could talk about it, but talk about it, you know?
And I mean, and it's crazy. Like there's a crazy twist at the end of the story that makes so sense. And I thought it was a conspiracy, but it wasn't. But so what happened is the second round is you got to meet down. And the craziest part, the principal himself drove me in his car to the interview to Harvard. Talk about extra effort. Like he drove me himself in his personal car to the interview down from Chicago just to make sure I got there. And I took
Shout out to that principal. Shout out to that principal, man. He didn't have to do that.
His name, I gotta remember his name, but it'll take me a minute. But he drove me there or whatever, and it was like I was in this fancy like a kind of like apartment building / office with a bunch of in a room with a bunch of other kids. Again, me, the only young black kid, and a bunch of other kids. They had because I had like a dress shirt on. They had like really nice
suits and all that.
Yeah, looking all real spiffy, and it looked like some Harry Potter stuff, like old books, like lamps. I thought I was like, yo, what is this?
Love it. Love it.
Literally, so you sit there waiting, they call you in. I walk in, it's this 90-year-old dude sitting in a chair interviewing you. I was like,
now is the interview like him like grilling you? He's just question on question on question about your life or about your schooling or both or what?
I honestly remember like a couple. It was kind of like impress me. Like I got that's what kind of vibe. Like
dance for me, yeah, dance for me, yeah.
Kind of felt like it was like, well, what are you gonna do? So he was like, so again, I'm not to be prejudiced and things like that, because again, I've dealt with people from all backgrounds.
No doubt.
Like, older, rich white man who's again like, why do you, his vibe was like, why do you? Actually, that was one of the questions. Like, why should you be part of Harvard? That was one of the questions. Why should you feel like you should be a part of Harvard? And I was like, I talked about like my background and like he asked did I have any questions. I was like, well, how does it work in terms of scholarship? Because again, kids of color, I'm thinking about what's the money like. This is cool.
No doubt. Did you have help? Did you have help with the paperwork for college, or was that all you?
Actually, I did. Shout out to the TRIO program. There's a program called TRIO where we have some high school counselors who, not counselors, but we had like these two women actually who would come to our school and help us through the application process. So
amazing.
we did the application online. They actually gave us spaces to do it and help us get letters of recommendation. So I actually did it. So shout out to them again. To see again, those little extra programs help. They think
Yeah,
cutting
no doubt. And that's what gets cut, like you said.
those programs really do
That
matter.
and arts programs. Those programs and arts programs get cut, bro.
Yeah. I mean, again, we know why. They kind of have a certain agenda on what they want young kids to do, whether that be of color or not color. So that's what
Yeah.
we need to.
So Harvard interview, and I want to talk about that agenda later on, but Harvard interview. So he's asking you why you deserve to be here. You talking about your background and what happens.
Yeah. So it's kind of like he got smug about it. He was like, well, no. When I asked him about like financials, like how will Harvard help with money, he was like, oh, well, if you go to Harvard, you never have to worry about money. We pay for everything. And it was just like a really odd. That's like the last two pieces I remember about it, and I didn't get it. And actually, was really interesting. So I'll backtrack. After I didn't get it, I was like, okay, this scholarship thing might be one of my only few opportunities. So that's
were you crushed? Did you feel defeated after you didn't get Harvard, or you was like, fuck it, I'm gonna keep it moving?
I think at one point I was really sad about it, but like then again, I guess the way the university worked, I had another opportunity that was a good one because some of the schools for the scholarship were really good schools too. And I think at that point I made it through the first round of that one. So it was 3-round interviews for the scholarship. And I think at that point I was already through the first round, working on the second round for essays and stuff. So I was like, hey, I still got a shot. So I mean, it hurt, but again, I still knew I had opportunity out there. Again, thanks to the teacher or educator taking extra effort to say, hey, you need to do this.
Yes, sir.
So, with that extra effort, what was I wrong with that? I forgot.
Well, we was dealing with Crush not being accepted to Harvard, but then after that, you went to you were talking about how the scholarship programs might be your only opportunity to get there, not to Harvard, to higher learning. So they say.
Yeah. So again, the scholarship programs, again, definitely they helped me out with the application process. So as the months drew on, it got the application. I guess actually the pool got smaller, so it was 2,500 students and only 100 kids were getting a scholarship.
From 2,500 to 100 for Posse.
Yes, for the city of Chicago.
I did Posse, bro. I did Posse. Just one round though. I got cut after the first round, but I know that process. That's crazy.
Yeah. The process, people who may not know, is like really groups. Kind of like if you've gone to group interviews for like Forever 21 or like a North Face where you're a large group of people. It's kind of like one-upmanship of like I can prove that I'm a little bit better than you, but
right.
So everything is like PG-13, so it's not as intense, but it's still intense because you're still expected to show how you're inquisitive, how you respond, how you interact with different people. So they put us in scenarios. So
they had you build the little Lego thing. They had you build that little Lego robot with other people.
I hate. Excuse me. I just like all those games now. Like, game of scholar. I'll be the one person with the face in the back, like why? Yeah. Like never. Like and it's crazy. I play those kind of games as a counselor now, but back then, like even in one, like we always still with the cell face in the back, like I don't want to play these games. So
oh my god,
all games, team building games, but again, this is why I said like the adversity from going to different schools helped me just backtrack or to connect it. Again, since I was very good at talking to different groups of people, communicating to myself, and when it came to scenarios of how I would act, my imagination allowed me to have different creative answers to be able to be interesting and diverse when it came to other people, I guess. So I guess helped me stand out. So again, that self-actualization or realization came later on that my adversities and from moving around from place to place as a kid and having to figure out my identity from place to place helped me learn how to become I guess more fluid and learn to express myself to different groups of people, which helped me later on in life with the scholarship. And
like that idea, I want to stop you there because sometimes I have conversations with my students about that, like adversity being foundational, but you don't see it when you're going through the adversity. You know what I'm saying? So, what might you say? And you work with young people now. We'll skip ahead and then we'll go back because I got another question about that. But do you say anything to your young people about adversity being like, yo, this is the worst right now, and I know you're going through it right now, but this is gonna, this is gonna serve its purpose down the line. Do you give them any of that game, or what are your thoughts on that generally?
Well, definitely. Again, it also depends on where I'm at. So again, I'm at a camp environment. I work with a lot of wealthy kids, so they're coming here for 2 or 3 days to learn about nature. So I'm not giving them the same experience that when I worked at my first camp in New York, where I was working with kids from the Bronx, and I was working on Fishkill, New York. Shout out to the Fresh Air Fund.
Yeah, Fresh Air Fund. Yeah, yep.
That I worked with. I worked with kids out there at Camp Hayden Marks, and there were kids from lower income neighborhoods. And I was a computer instructor, and I used my curriculum to instill lessons about technology, but also self-confidence. So I never forgot. I had this one class where it's called I Am Great, where I had them make a poster of themselves saying I am great with positive words and graphics on it, and I have them print it and take it home so they can know that they had significance, that they were still empowered. And I guess it was really important for them, or for me, to show them that I've come from similar backgrounds. So again, here's me, a young black man from Chicago, kids talking about, oh, my brother's been through that, or oh, they're from this gang. I'm like, well, I have friends who are in gangs right now. I have friends who are in jail, my best friends. But again, that's not, you don't have to follow that. Again, I've gone to schools. Again, so having my past experience of dealing with CPS, I can say I've been to schools with torn down books. I've seen brawls like that and heard shots outside of schools, and can use that as context to say, hey, well, no matter what you're going through, I understand it may be hard, but again, someone that's going through what you've gone through has gone through it, and you can by using education. So not only have I gone through it, but I'm also showing you an avenue of how I've done it. And education is one of the best ways. For everyone might not have the most athletic or an outright talent to sing, but if you can apply your mind to something that you, whether it be art, whether for me it was reading, technology, some people it's language, some people it's drawing. So it's whatever you can apply your mind to as a creative avenue can really help you in life and things of that nature. So
yeah, bro, that's a good thing, man. That's a good thing. And that, that's really something that I try to hammer into the young people that I'm with as well. They just got to know that their mind is, their mind is an infinite resource, bro. They can tap in whenever they need to. And, I just got a lot of empathy for, the way their environment is set up, and, that it may not necessarily feel like that all the time, but it's noble work that you're doing, bro. Noble. I wanted to go into your past a little bit too, because you're talking about, you were very conscious of the fact that you was a young black man, especially when you started moving to these spaces of higher learning and things of that nature. Like, I know you mentioned what your principal had told you before, that she'll send you back to the hood, but was there anything else while you were in Chicago that really made you aware of, either racism or discrimination? Were there any specific experiences that you had went through at the hand? Well, you had mentioned some of these racist officers before, so if you could go into that a little bit, because these, this is also foundational as you move into college.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I got 2 instances of dealing with police and just in general. The first one, I'll never forget this. I was about 14 years old, walking. Again, I was in South Side Chicago. About that broad day afternoon, I'm walking. I don't know where I was going. Might have been walking to Walgreens or something. So this is on the middle of our strip, our street with all the stores on it. A black Cadillac roll up, 2 guys with detectives, and I can tell they're detectives by their lights, whatever. And they're smoking. And he pulled up to the side of me. He rolled down his window. He was, hey, you, hello, sir. And I put instinctively, I put my hands up like, hey, officer. I'm like, hey, what are you doing?
It's crazy how that's hardwired into so many of our people, bro.
I'm not a kid who steals anything, but instantly I put the hands up because I know what's going on. So he was like, and just the context, what he asked me, in retrospect now could have been dangerous, because he was like, hey, do you have a gun? I was like, I'm only 14-year-old, son. I'm a 14-year-old, sir. Why would I have a gun? He said, I know plenty of 14-year-olds with guns, and chuckled and laughed and drove off. So that was my first experience and there were 2 white officers that came up to a 14-year-old kid who just walking down the side of the street. Hey, you got a gun? You look like it, and drove off.
That was probably a little joke that they were having before they pulled up on you. Hey, look at this one. Let I don't know. Man, 14, bro. Bro, like coming up in the Bronx, I never experienced anything racist or nothing like that in my life. until I got to college.
Oh wow,
Zero, bro.
Hold on, let me close this window.
And that was me in a heavily melanated school. Dominicans, Puerto Ricans, black, all commingling, intermingling. The only white exposure I had was my teachers, and they were not on some racist, at least not in front of us. So I never experienced anything like that, bro, until I got to college. It's just very interesting. At 14, your mind is still growing, bro. Your whole perception of reality is still changing.
I mean, again, it definitely helped shape the narrative, like young black men not liking cops. But on the flip side of that, my senior year of high school, I was trying to go downtown to the Field Museum, and I was walking around. My phone had died, and I was lost. And I walked up to a police officer, and I asked him, like, where I was. He was like, "Are you lost?" And he was like, "Do you know what neighborhood you're in?" And I was like, "No, it looked like a pretty gritty neighborhood." He was like, "All right, well, listen, I'm gonna give you a ride." So this police officer took me in the back of the car, and he gave me a ride to the museum. He was like, "All right, have a good day and stay out of trouble." So again, that experience was like, I can see why both sides of the spectrum, where again there's a certain respect for police officers because they
No doubt.
Again, they're doing dangerous jobs as well, but they can be helpful to the community. But again, I just told you about experience where it was very traumatic, where again I was put in a position where I didn't know what could have happened. So again, I got to see both sides of the spectrum, but again, the general consensus, I guess, growing up is that you don't talk to the police, you don't snitch, or you don't really cooperate or want to deal with white, police officers, and guess white people in general. So in my younger age, I was still a little more, I guess, quote unquote, prejudiced because I wasn't aware. My interactions with, I guess, people outside of my race were mainly in education. So most friends were black. Most, I guess, family was black. So I've only saw people who were non-black in positions of authority. So, and most of those times, as a kid, you don't like authority. So I kind of associated whiteness with authority, and that's a whole psychological thing in itself.
That's a whole thing, no doubt.
That's a rabbit hole. I said, "How are you going too deep?" So I said, "I don't want to go that deep." But
no. Like we gotta go there because this is real. Because this is part of the programming. This is part of the programming from young, from baby. Mm-hmm. I did a Google image search. Mm-hmm. I said, you know what? Let me Google image search the word king. Mm-hmm. I put in happy king. Mm-hmm. And the image that came up, and this is no shade on Google. I'm just saying this is a result of generations and generations of programming. The images that came up were the white European king with the European style crown and the European garbs and, the very fair skin and, that kind of style and the regal robes and the staff and everything. A very European image of a king for pages. Happy king. Then I put in, okay, African king. And then you get the tribal chiefs from Africa. You get, kings in history from Africa that are adorned in gold and things of that nature. And I'm just like, damn, bro. So part of the programming from young, you give our kids a coloring book and the image of a deck of playing cards. Mm-hmm. The Jack, the Queen, the Joker, those are all European images. You know what I mean? So the programming goes deep. So speak on that, bro. When you say that, the programming deals with, viewing these people as authority right off rip. It happens as soon as you're born.
I will definitely, again, all the people, again, that's an essential thing as a kid in most urban environments, most of your teachers aren't going to be black or aren't going to specifically be black, Latino, or someone, a person of color, let's say. So they're going to be, again, traditionally older white people, whether it be male or female, I've had both in terms of principals and, I guess, leaders, administrative staff, I should say. So most of my time in elementary school and high school, 75% of the administrative staff were non-black. So
AKA the ones that call the shots, the policy makers, the ones that enforce the rules of the school. Go ahead.
So whenever I was thinking about danger or looking out for certain levels of watching out for authority, I was always subconsciously looking out for white faces. So I mean, again, it's deep in terms of it helped later on, like my senior year of high school, having my principal was a black man, and getting to see people that look like you in leadership positions helps you feel like there's a certain level of understanding and not that you're being attacked. In some instances, I felt like I was being based on who I was, based on my compared to me just being a regular student, i.e. the person saying, the principal, assistant principal saying, I'll send you back to where I came from. She wouldn't say that's a regular student not a regular student, a white student, or even a white, because again, what do you mean when they come from? We're both American. I'm clearly an American student, but she meant based on my color. I'm a American raised student, so she based on my skin tone, she was insinuating that I was from a place that wasn't good. So, and in that instance, again, this trying to navigate that, trying to not let those experiences cause me to stain my view of how I interacted with people.
Were you conscious of that as, you know, as time went on? Like, yo, I'm not gonna let this, you know, kind of. And but the thing is, you could be conscious of it, but these things affect you also on a subconscious level. So it's not until we start dealing with the subconscious mind and unpacking those things that we can really kind of reprogram ourselves. But you know, were you conscious of that as you do it? I'm not gonna let this, you know, affect my outlook on all of these people. But yeah.
I mean, I feel like through life experiences, I was taught that. So again, like I told you, Mr. Sherlock, again, he was a white male, one of my favorite creative writing teachers in high school. So again, another teacher who saw very great things in me. Her name was shout out to Miss Eckhart. Miss Eckhart was
shout out to Miss Eckhart.
She was again a young white lady who was English teacher. So again, she again noticed I like writing, I like reading. So I never forgot. I always think about this today. I never forgot this one assignment. She taught us about novellas, and a novella is like a 20-page, short story. She's like, all right, guys, for tonight, I just wanted y'all to write like a little sample novella. So I took that as what she meant was like write 1 to 2 pages of like what a sample of a novella will look at. Me in my mind, how I got to write a novella. So I literally that night sat there and wrote 20 pages of a story off the top of my brain. Like this was year out like high school, roll it out, and like the next day I was like, Miss Eckhart, I wrote a novella. She was, Howard, oh no you didn't. No, I did. It's 20 pages. She was huh? Like,
what was it about, bro? I'm curious. What was it about? You remember?
I think the name was like I barely I think it was really interesting story. I called it Swift or something like that. It was about I just remember it just hit me. Did like the download I asked for it just came back. It was called Spare Change. So it's I'm eventually finish this book too. But it was about this guy who was so consumed, a businessman who was taking a road trip through Nevada, and he was, I guess, ignoring his son's basketball game, and he gets in an accident on the road or something like that, and he dies. I guess this like the general synopsis, but I guess he meets like a man on the side of the road, and the man asks for change, and he doesn't give him change, and that him not giving him change leads to a bunch of chain of events that leads to his death. Okay. So the whole theme of that was like one decision in your life can change different things. And this, I'm in high school doing writing, trying to make deep stuff. I've always been a deep kid.
Yes, sir.
I was writing about a businessman, like again. So I think I've been meaning to write that, but again, I remember that vividly because again, she liked it too. She gave me the grade for it, and she encouraged me to keep doing it. But again, that passion of like again, her challenging students and me taking that to the level and her acknowledging that and not just saying, "Oh, you can't do it," or just, "Oh." Again, a normal teacher could have just gave a normal assignment. Oh, here's a definition. Next subject. She actually kept us engrossed in it. So that's what I always try to do with my curriculum is keep students engrossed and make them a part of the lesson so that they can find something in themselves that they either like or that can resonate with, and they can use that fuel as something to get them through hard times or just help them find a little bit of guidance or purpose. So.
Yes, sir. That's what it's about. So let's fast forward back to high school. Posse scholarship. You going in. Harvard said no. Posse scholarship. You go from 2,500 to 100. What happens after that? And how do you get to DePaul? Right.
Mm-hmm.
All right. How do you get to DePaul?
It was about two more interviews after that. So it was about this. So after each interview, the pool got smaller. So from 2,500 students to about 1,000 to about like the last 250. So started with group interviews. The second one, you have to write an essay, a personal statement, And I remember using using a lot of adversity. So I used the fact that my father was blind and how I used that as fuel to keep me focused in school as like part of my essay content. So ended up and again shout out to my two first posse instructors. One was D Dominique and the other was Roderick. Like they were really again two more educators who saw potential in the kid. It was like again I was one of the only few kids
So
from my town who actually made it to the second round. So they're like, well, this kid, because most of the kids who were up I was competing against were from influential schools. Like most of my people in my posse went to north side schools that had more resources and funding. I was one of the only ones who was from a south side school to be still left in the competition. So like they saw that and they like made sure like they would send me edits of like my personal statements, going above and beyond to make sure that I'm doing the right. Well, I'll just getting the best opportunity. So again, I made it to the third round of it. At that point, I started to get serious. At this point, I was the last one from my school to be in the competition. So I had about like 14 other friends in it, and I was the last one to make. Actually, I think it was like two. I had one other friend who made it to the last round. He didn't get it either. It was just me. But actually, it was really interesting. So once the downside of intellect or the negative side that comes with being smart was that once I was got to later round, I started to lose some of my closest high school friends. Like we had a whole senior class, like leadership staff. Once they started to see that I was going to get the scholarship and they weren't, I started to get a lot of resentment. A lot of people used to treat me differently just based on, I guess they thought I was saying I was acting different, and they didn't like the fact that I was working towards something else. So again, it wasn't always easy path. Again, people, when you're trying to learn to express yourself, to be individual, I could have easily been like, well, my friends didn't talk to me no more, or let me just quit and just try to be cool. But I was like, hey, look, they don't like me, that's cool, but I got to do this for me. So always keeping that mindset.
Bro, I mean, fortunate, bro, to have that level of self-awareness that young, bro. Fortunate to have that level of self-awareness that young. Self-awareness is key, bro. It just allows you to move in the way that you need to move, that you know is going to be best for yourself, So shout out to you, bro. That takes a strong foundation and a strong will, like you said before, courage as well.
Yes, sir. I mean, I think a lot of that again just comes from like I can go like we got a whole I got chapters, man. We can talk about like because my minor was in religious studies, and one of the main things we studied in this course is the hero's story or the journey of
the hero's journey. Woo!
Yeah.
I know you read The Power of Myth by Joseph Campbell, or no, The Hero with 1,000 Faces. That one.
Yeah. I had to read that one. So again, so you know to say the wavelength of I've always drawn to the story of the hero overcoming.
Love it, bro. It's so powerful, bro. The magic helper.
Yeah, like again, even in video games, I've always picked the mage. Like I always like to be like the helper or like the person. I never have to be the warrior. Like I'm always give me the magic dude. Give me him. I like to be
the healer. You know what I mean? I love it. I was always the warrior myself, bro. I was always like right there in the action, but I know the importance of the healer. I know it well.
Everybody else wanted my friends. They want to be the archer. They want the sword. No, give me the magic dude. So again, always
love it.
The imagination. But again, like the significance of the overcoming obstacles in the hero's journey.
Yes, sir.
Growing as a young man, all different aspects of that I was drawn to. So when it came to life experiences, I'm just trying to figure out. Actually, is it snowing outside? I'm not
Yo, I'm so glad you mentioned the hero's journey, bro, because that's something I've been really digging into over the past couple of months. I got a poem cooking right now that's called The Hero's Journey. And everything you say is just resonating with me right now, bro. Like, it's a reason why I've always been drawn to these themes that deal with, dude living a regular life, and then all of a sudden a calamity happens, and now he's called to be the one to, kind of save the day. But those same tropes, if you apply them to life, bro, especially if you're destined for something like that, like, that's so powerful, man. So powerful.
Yeah, I definitely believe that. Again, I definitely like even. Again, with my shoulder, when this happened, when I broke my collarbone, I immediately, like, there was no regret. Like, I wasn't like, oh, man, I messed up. There was some, like, momentary, like, man, well, I wish I couldn't. I mean, even then, like, I wasn't mad. Like, people said I handled it really well. Because I took it, like, there was complete responsibility. Like, there was no, oh, I did this or this happened to me. I was like, well, Howard, you put yourself in a situation. I mean, just to go back to what happened to my collarbone, I was snowboarding, and so I longboard too. So I have a history with boarding, so I'm pretty good with my balance. So this is my first time doing it. Me and a bunch of other friends went up to a mountain to do it, and I was slide. I made it to intermediate, and a kid ran out in front of me. I'm going about 20 miles an hour, so I had to make a decision. Either I come down and hit this kid, and potentially, and it was hard ice. So if I would have ran over this kid with my board, I would have crushed him or broke a lot of bones.
Yeah.
So it was either try to avoid the kid or stop super fast. So I tried to obviously stop super fast. The top of my board got clipped, and I did a cartwheel and landed on my collarbone. But even then, I was like, listen, now it wasn't like, I mean, beginning, but the significance, the experiences that I drew from that, I chose to see it as positive, because it was one of the most funnest experiences of my life. Like, I had so much up until that point before I got hurt. It was one of the most funnest experiences that I've had in a while, because here's me challenging myself, being adventurous, trying new things,
Right.
breaking boundaries and things of that nature. But even after that happened, like, coming to the realization that, like, even in that moment, when it comes between me and someone else or a child, I'd rather put myself before,
Yeah.
I guess, put others before myself. So it's like, it was affirmation that at the end of the day, like, not to say I don't let my ego rule me. I could have been like, man, skip this kid. I didn't know that kid from painting the wall, but me being a person who understands, or I guess who just a caring person. I didn't want to crush some little kid and have him scarred for a while, and me just having to go through it. And this happened my last week of work too. So I mean, again, it all worked out. I mean, I'm actually flying back to Chicago Thursday. So
Yeah, so you had the time to recover, and because it was your last week of work. But see, like, I like what you said of how choosing to view it as a positive thing, because when you reach that level of self-awareness, when you reach that level of, knowing that you are exactly where you need to be, then everything that happens to you, bro, I'm actually, it's interesting that you said that, because I'm actually in a place where I'm thinking about even the positive things, or the things that one would consider positive, or the good things. I'm choosing to remain fairly neutral about them. I'm choosing to remain fairly neutral. I'll have my moment of celebration, or, indulge in the good feeling for a moment. But I'm choosing kind of to just remain neutral as far as the emotions go on pretty much everything. And instead just taking everything holistically and be like, all right, I got to learn from this. I got to learn from this. This was all a part of that hero's journey for me. All of this is to contribute on the path that I'm on. My destiny. I look at it as destiny. That's my view. That's the square that I stand on, So, I like what you said, because especially with the young people, the young men, they tend to get real warped. And hey, I was there too before this level of self-awareness. So I understand they tend to get real warped and bent out of shape about the negative things, but then overly hyped for the positive things kind of thing, and I'm just trying to, I'm trying to figure out the correct balance and getting them to understand, like, try a little neutrality. You know what I mean? Or there's things to be learned from all of this.
I mean, and again, like, as an educator, I've learned. So again, my time as a teacher, I've learned that you can pass the message to students, but certain lessons, they have to life needs to bludgeon into themselves. So the only thing you can do as a teacher. I like
the way you said that, have to bludgeon into themselves. They have to learn it. That's the only way. That's the only way.
Listen to the words. Life has to bludgeon. Like, I'm very particular with my words, sir. Like, these experiences going to hit you in the face like a rocket, and you need to feel them. And then once you feel them, then you can be, so this is what moderation and not being too overly indulgent in spending, or like you overly spending on your first check and something breaks down on your car. That's a rocket slap to the face, because as an adult, learning to deal with things, and you having to be able to come at these life experiences, and I mean, in the moment they're hard, but the more you go through them, and if you don't, that's where depression kicks in, where people are unable to draw, I guess, positivity from experiences. So, in the context, I guess my depression levels my senior year of my junior year of college were really high. And I was going to see a therapist, because at that point in my life, I was feeling a lot of pressure from trying to take care of home, from dealing with a legal issue at school, and dealing with academics, and then dealing with relationships. So I was dealing with a lot of things in terms of internally,
Right.
at a very, very dark place. And but in the midst of all that darkness, that's where I started to again, educators. Again, there's gonna be another common theme. One of my advisors, my religious studies professor,
Shout out to my advisor at Lehigh, Cashy Johnson. It's the bro. If I didn't have an advisor like my advisor in school, bro, I would have been bounced.
Exactly.
Would have been bounced.
Both of my advisors. My first one, Professor Leslie James. I did my second one, Professor Angela Castaneda. I saw her an apology because I was
Shout out to them.
So much anxiety at that point. Like I ended up snapping at her at something like the last day of school because I had under so much pressure. But she ended up helping me so much in terms of my degree. So again, like, but at that phase of my life, like even I'm not like mad at myself for it. I'm understanding that I was going through so much in my mind state that I wasn't at the point where I was able to express myself properly and things of that nature. But again, so my advisor, when I was going through this depression phase, this is the same time I was taking like those religious studies classes about like the meaning of life, or talking about the hero's journey and things of that nature. And one of the major themes was self-awareness, or trying to I guess see a meaning or significance in how you want to affect the world, or how you feel like you can contribute to the world at large. And that's mostly what I've been trying to focus on. That's kind of how I got into education, to volunteering. I learned that I like working with kids. Like there are various points in my times in my life where I felt better physically and mentally after coming working with kids, no matter what of the outside experiences in my life. And I feel like that helped me gain a lot more compassion and understanding. So it helped me and also be more responsible as a man in general. So for young men, like I highly advise any young man through college, volunteer or at least teach for a semester or a year and see what it's like to have a child's responsibility, care, and I bet you we're more.
And to kind of to add on to that, it's also a humbling experience to have a young person call you out on your own bullshit.
Oh, they will call you. Yeah.
That for me, when I first got into working with young people, I was like, oh, so I am full of shit in this regard. And it forces you to become a little more humble, a little more honest in your dealings. So I'm on board with what you said 100%.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Again, kids are some of the best teachers, some of the most honest people that you can even talk to. Again, that's why most of my time I like working with kids more, just because when it comes to transferring, when I try to teach adults or try to educate adults, there's resistance I get that's come from indoctrination, that comes from but when it's a child, they're in a position of authority, and an adult, they have some automatic, they're at least going to have some consideration for what you're saying. An adult doesn't give a shit if they don't know you, lie to you.
Because it's wrapped up in ego, bro. It's wrapped up. It's like wrapped up in ego, man. And I've been doing a lot of ego work, bro. Let me tell you, I've been doing a lot of ego work. This is, let's walk down that road for a second, because bros need to put this out into the open, and people need to put it out into the open in general. Things are just ego based, bro. Now that I'm conscious of ego, how it works, how to master it, because I'm not interested in killing my ego, because it's my ego that will allow me to defend to the death one of the young ladies in my family. You understand? It's my ego that will allow me to do that. Or, it's me allowing my ego to kind of do that, So, but, now that I'm kind of on this side of it, I'm looking around, I'm like, damn, like things are wrapped up in ego big time, bro. And that's a big reason for so much tension, so much, combativeness, so much reactionary behavior, and not enough compassion, not enough empathy, So talk a little bit about ego, bro. Where you at in your ego journey? And, what are your thoughts on ego in general,
I mean, my thoughts were mainly shaped before I even get into my opinion. Like when I first got into college, I didn't know much about ego. Again, I was just mainly focused on being popular and getting lit. And when I started to take classes, my first class was Caribbean religions, and I think Caribbean religions. I actually was called Bob Marley in Caribbean religions with my advisor.
Shout out to the legend Robert Nesta.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So
legend.
again, we read, so in that class we talked about Rastafarianism, and some of their ideas was the I and I, how we're all connected, how you should have respect for yourself and love for all, and I guess things of that nature, and how ego. Well, actually, that's where I first got into things about the ego. I started to learn the tricks or the tools or the trade of how ego is used against the population. So they talked about politics of where they have this view with all politics, no matter Democrat or Republican, no matter what side you're on, it's still a tool used to trick the masses. And
Yeah.
that kind of stuck with me throughout my life, or I guess throughout my time in college. Also, then I took a class on Buddhism, which was Professor Sujun Kim. Shout out to her. That was one of my favorite classes. Like,
Shout out to that professor.
and it's really interesting because in college, like my freshman year, I feel like I got screwed over because of my race. It was actually an art class. The art teacher didn't like me. I'm pretty sure she was racist. She gave me a C because I like to do abstract work. So after that, I said I'm not giving any more class, any more full effort in college. So I was able, again, me being a highly intellectual kid, I was able to just, like, I gotta admit, I kind of just got stoned and BS and was able to get B's. And my college was like one of the top liberal arts schools. Like, they called it the Harvard of the Midwest. So this was high level work I was doing, but me,
Yeah.
intellectual kid, I was like, I don't want to give them all of me because I've been screwed over. But her class, certain classes, I give all of me if I'm interested in them. So that's why, like the Caribbean religion class, I really liked, and her class on Buddhism was really helped shape my views about ego and balance.
Was that freshman year that you took those classes?
I took all throughout my year. I think I started with Caribbean religions like my freshman year. So I think each one of my 4 years, I had at least one religion classes.
I only asked because, freshman year, thinking back in retrospect for me, that would have been a good intro for me freshman year. At least it would have made me feel a little more, comfortable because it was something that I could have related to,
Yeah, well, my freshman year was super impactful because I took some of the hardest courses at the university. One of them was computer science and philosophy. Like, I took a class about I learned about Descartes, Socrates, and learning. Actually, that class, let's backtrack. That class was huge because that's where, like, I was reading about, like, is there a God? Is there a man?
Yeah.
So here I like inquisitive things, and I'm already starting to go into deep thought. My very first year about, like, who I was as a person and my position in reality, and having to write arguments. And so I was starting to think different from a very early age in terms of my academic career. And that kind of helped translate it to when I got to religion. I was able to see things I guess I have a lot of different perspectives. A lot of different hats, you can say. I can see it from a religious hat, where they're looking at the significance of passages and scriptures. I can see it from an anthropological hat, where I'm looking at the timeline, what different symbols mean. And I can also look at it from an aspect of spirituality, of, like, what the spirit is trying to convey from this text. So I was able to read into Buddhism and to see how there are different ideas, such as the middle path. That's probably the biggest ideal I got.
You said the mental path?
The middle path.
Oh, the middle path. Okay.
Path. So it's essentially that there's a path of two paths, good and light, one of them left or right, and the perfect balance is not to just be too much in the left. But kind of yin yang, you need to walk in the middle. You need to find a balance. And the middle balance is like, but in order to have that balance, you need to remove ego. Because if you get too consumed by the light or the dark, that's what kind of basically what you're saying. Like, the light,
yep,
and the positivity or what's going on in the moment, you start to lose balance. You get too down on what happens in life, you start to lose track of all the light out there. So their philosophy is that you have to walk that middle path and stay centered, or stay
centered and neutral and kind of balanced, and not too much on either side. Yeah.
And that's one of the main things I learned from our religious studies, is like a lot of these different sections or groups of people are saying the same thing, just in different ways. Like, that's how religions, from the ancient Egyptian, from the Christian to the Eastern to the Western.
That's what Campbell goes into in The Power of Myth, how, cultures across the world globally over time who have had previously no contact with each other are developing these, these mythologies and these mythos that share these similar tropes and tenets, Yeah.
They're essentially the same thing going around. So,
So then, like, where you at on ego personally now? Like, after, so you're taking these classes, they're forming the way you think about these things. You know what? Like now, at this point in your life, where you at on ego?
Before I got to the point I'm at now, there was another phase of ego where I was on a path to learning who I was. Then I had to learn who I was separate from my significant other. So at that time in college, I was in a long-term relationship, and then my senior year, we broke up, and then that's why I had another separation of ego, like where I was defining myself through the relationship and through her. So that was like, I'm in that.
Oh, it's touchy, bro. It's touchy, and it's true though, bro. It's so true, man. I was just having conversations with a group of students, bro. Matter of fact, hold up. I want to show you this because it's funny that you mentioned that because I'm talking to this group of students. Shout out to my students. You know,
Mm-hmm.
so that's me there, right?
Mm-hmm.
And those are the students. And in that conversation, I'm telling them, listen, you know, when you start dealing with relationships, and like you said, there are things that life is going to bludgeon into them and then they'll learn it. But I like planting seeds, you know, that way when they think about it, they're like, oh yeah, he did mention that. I was telling them, when you start defining yourself through the relationship, when you come into a relationship with your foundation shaky,
Mm-hmm.
it's not going to work out. Or 9 times, you know, it might work out. You might grow with each other and things will be all cool. But, you know, you got to approach that relationship with a sense of wholeness, or at least a decent sense of self-awareness. But we know this now, right? When we're young, we don't know nothing about that. We ain't trying to hear it. But now that's the move. You know, what are your thoughts?
No, perfectly right. At least for me, like, I think for relationships, most of the time people get caught up in the illusion of like, especially in college, mainly high school, because most marriages happen from college. Most people marry their college, high school sweetheart. And when we were in that phase, especially for me, we were like in a wonderland where everything was perfect. Me and my ex, we were of different cultural backgrounds. So in her cultural background, they weren't accepting of African Americans. So her
You said they
family,
were not?
they were not.
Hmm.
So there were instances where, again, in terms of cultural exchange, it would have been very bad on her end if her family would have found out that she was with someone from a different race. So, and those are the kind of things that kind of pop the bubble. Like we're towards the end of the year, like we're like, well, yeah, I'm graduating, and how are we going to kind of move forward if we got things going on? So, besides moving on from that, like those kind of outside things can kind of shape how I go about reality. That kind of threw me for a loop because here I am having to redefine myself. Like I'm about to transition into the real world, and now I'm transitioning alone. So that kind of threw me, the ego, all the way in the midst of going through a long drought of depression where I was just at home for a long period, just like not focusing on me, playing a lot of video games.
This is post college.
This is post college, like the first couple months after, like there was like a lost period. I was back at my mom's house, just lost, still trying to figure out. Well, actually, not immediately after. So immediately after, I had a summer job at a camp, and then after the camp, I went back home.
Okay.
After the camp, I went back home or whatever, and just went through like a lot of negativity, being stuck too much in the yang gram. I was focused too much on what was happening. I didn't have a lot of very defined sense of self.
Is that because, like you had mentioned before, your sense of self was defined through that relationship, and now that wasn't there no more, you was kind of floating in space, or was it something else to it?
I feel like at that point I'd allowed myself to be consumed by the relationship and become, again, not to say that's not necessarily a bad thing. You become so accustomed to someone, become accustomed to such a routine that it becomes, again, comfortable. Again, comfortability is a poison. Let's say that again. The comfort of the relationship lulled me into thinking that this was all I needed, and helped me withdraw from what I needed, what I wanted to do. Because there was a point where I was thinking about applying to go to like Peru or something early on to do research, but I was like, well, I got a girlfriend. I don't want to leave her. So
Damn. I feel you so. I felt that because it was times, or it was things that I passed up that I know, right? And this is a little ego kicking up in me now, but fuck it, I'm gonna take it there. It was things that I passed up, opportunities that I passed up, especially when it comes to my, like, you know, my poetry and then the performance aspect, that I turned down because I was like, nah, you know, she's there, da da da. Shout out to her, you know, all love. But so I felt that one, bro. So I know what it must have been like for you to think back and say, fuck, I could have gone to Peru. I could have had this whole opportunity. I know what you feel, bro. I know what you feel like, but it'll never happen again. That will never happen again. But those are the kind of things that breed resentment down the line.
Well, that's the thing where, again, you got to take it, you got to, like, it's all about how you interpret reality. You can let that turn into resentment, or you can let that, like the first thing you say, it's never going to happen again. Let that be a lesson that, again, let that be a life bludgeon lesson. That's why I took that as. Like, instead of being Howard, instead of being like, man, I could be in Peru, I was like, I bet that shit won't happen again.
Facts.
Right up to the chest, I feel it, but it ain't going to happen again. So,
Right.
Thought about, like, again, I always tell people it's all about, like, interpretation of how things happen to you. Like, you can interpret, if you can change how you respond to things,
right,
you can remain neutral. Like, if you choose to remain unaffected, then nothing can affect you. So
yeah,
again, for most people, it's hard to, like, stay balanced. Again, no one's perfect. Again, I'm not perfect. I'm saying I got out of college, and after a couple months I was zen. After a couple months, I was able to find myself. I was able to get back into writing. So the way that I came out of that was getting back into what made me who I was. So I started reading again, started writing more poetry, started researching things that I like. So that's where I came more into seeing that I didn't need that part of the ego. I was able to be more fulfilled in what made me more passionate, or what fulfilled me inside. So that's how I kind of transition out of feeling like I need a relationship or significant other, or need
man.
Because that, like, Rip showed me that, hey, well, I gotta be my own friend now. I gotta be my own source of background and
when you start to, when you know things happen, when you start to refocus these energies back into yourself, that takes on different forms for different dudes. Like, that could be working out, that could be, you know, I don't know what you know, longboarding. You go out for a rollerblade. I don't know what you like to do. You like to cook. Well, when you start to reinvest those energies that you were previously investing in all these different places back into yourself, things start to happen, bro. Like, and I'm talking mainly to the brothers, and, you know, to kind of like the older side of the viewership. Like, you start taking those energies, man, and you start putting things back into yourself and investing into yourself in the form of knowledge, in the form of, you know, whatever you like to do, or whatever, you know, fills you up, man, things get good, bro. Yeah, that's not saying that life is going to be void of those challenges anymore, or those bludgeonings, but you're better prepared for them, because then, bro, it leads back to self-awareness. It leads back to self-actualization and an elevated sense of consciousness.
Yep, and the biggest thing too is, like, being consciously aware. That's like these past couple months. That's what I've been getting. Being consciously aware. Like, even if you can't resolve a problem, if you can be consciously aware that you're trying to stop it, that's good enough. That's how you build a habit in your mind. So again, I have family who have anger issues when it comes to communicating with kids. So I'll be at family gatherings, and I see them yelling at kids and talking to them disrespectfully. I pull them aside, like, hey, like, I know their intent is good, just like how they're communicating it. So and, like, telling them how to communicate and translate in that, it helps the relationship with their child be better. But based on how I see things, or based on my experiences as an educator, I understand that children are individuals too. Like, they have feelings too. That's the most things adults don't realize.
I want to talk about that. Yeah.
Like, if they feelings hurt, and that makes me consciously aware that when I'm communicating with a child, I'm still an adult, and they should be listening to me, but they're a person with feelings. So
right.
And I say that I'm going to be nice to every kid, but I'll always keep that conscious awareness. Okay, Howard, you can snap right now, but remember, he's 7. Right?
Yeah.
So gotta keep it cool. So again, like, people, like, whenever I see people complain about something they don't like or a habit, well, I say you need to start with being consciously aware that you're doing it, and make a conscious effort to stop. Even if you don't do it, you like, I'm smoking it again, but I'm consciously aware that I need the next one. So, like, you have to take steps and, like, put effort into stop doing it too. But the first baby step, it can be, before you even make efforts, be conscious that you're
consciously aware that you're doing something.
Yep.
You know Eckhart Tolle? The author Eckhart Tolle.
I haven't heard of
All right,
him.
so he wrote a couple of like best-selling worldwide books. One of them is The Power of Now. The other one is A New Earth.
Yeah, I've heard The Power of Now.
Power of Now, right? He also wrote a book called A New Earth. And in that book, A New Earth, he deals with ego. Like that's one of the main kind of points of the book. And after reading that, something that I took away from that, when you talk about being consciously aware, he breaks down how ego and awareness cannot exist at the same time. So when you're doing something rooted in ego, when you're saying something rooted in ego, when you're acting in a way rooted in ego, if you become aware of it, or even if you're thinking something that's rooted in ego, when you become consciously aware of it, then that kind of, it dissipates. Like you said, if I'm about to go off on a student, have that moment of awareness first and be like, all right, what's going on? What's about to happen? Why am I upset? What am I about to say? And that changes the game completely, that sense of awareness. So I'm with you 100% on that, bro.
Sure. Yes. Again, a lot of philosophers, a lot of people, wise people have come to these conclusions. They're just like in our generation, we're so consumed by the smartphones that a lot of this knowledge isn't sought after, or because it isn't sensationalized, which is why I'm working on my books. I'm working on trying to make the knowledge that I have more, more easier access for the generation, for the youth. So I'm working on books about how Tekashi 6ix9ine is a perfect example of how cultural appropriation is harming, how Black culture is being used as a tool. So how he was portraying himself as a gangster rapper in order to fit the image and to make a lot of money. But when it came to having to abide by those cultural rules, he showed that he wasn't really part of that culture, i.e. him snitching and all of his friends getting 20 plus years. Like
that boy. He still got 2 years at the end of it all, though.
Right, but you got to break it down to like in there, like understanding. Like
no doubt.
Historical context, but if I'm making about Tekashi 6ix9ine and the guy talking about shooting Rugas, snitching notes. After again, nothing's wrong with cooperating with law enforcement, but here you are. He was a person portraying a lifestyle, and then he ended up falsifying that lifestyle and ended up getting people persecuted because of his actions. Right. So way deeper than him just singing gangster, where he's appropriating the culture that the culture in itself is negative. So he's appropriating the negative culture. So he's profiting off the negative images of a particular group of people. And then when it came to abide by those particular group of people's rule, he breaks them.
Right.
And when kids need to understand that, like if you want to be a gangster, you got to pay.
You got to go all the way. Go all the way. Right.
Yeah, and most kids think it's a game these days. Like a lot of the, because I work with a lot of high schools. So in Minnesota, all of the behavior support specialists. So I was working, I was working with kids who were one step removed from going back to quote unquote normal high schools, and they were having too many issues. And a lot of the kids I meet were like young men of color. I get along with them really well, but they were all talking about gangs and beef. I'm like, why are you talking about gangs and beef? And I listen to all the music they're playing, and they doing the same thing, getting music, shooting the same things. I'm like, they just copying what they see. Yeah. So unless we change what they see or we prioritize different things, we're just gonna keep a same cycle. So
yeah, I got you, bro. Noble work. I'm gonna keep saying it. So just to respect the brother's time, Howard Robinson, this is actually going to be the first part 2 that I have of Upstanding Upsilon. So we're going to get into the second half. We're going to get into his LSU experience, how he became a brother. But brother, I just want to thank you for the dynamic part 1 of this build, of this journey into your life. Almost 2 hours we sitting here having a conversation. Time flies. It flies. Sure. Just want to let you know I'm honored. You know what I mean? It's a blessing to have you on the show. And we're going to re-link up and reorganize for this part 2, because I definitely want the people to know about your LSU journey and what you've been able to get from that experience as a brother, and also the work that you're doing right now. So I appreciate you, my brother. Thank you for being here for the first part.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate you as well, brother. Hope you have a good night and get more good insight and more good info to come.
Salute to you, my G. We'll talk soon.
All right, for sure, bro.